guys, how you guys doing? My name is Chris Danny. So for today's video, I don't have a drink for today, but guys, grab some refreshments, gather around, grab some refreshments on my behalf, get a snack. So the first thing I want you guys to do is to sit back, and I want you guys to relax and be as comfortable as possible. So for today's session, I'm going to be doing YouTube, but on Instagram YouTube. This will be like a mock live, right? This is because my camera's working again. It had a technical issue. It's working again, so now I decided to go and put it more on the clearer camera. So one thing I have to say is, last week I spoke to you guys about the Esther anointing. It was, you were born for such a time as this, right? That's what we were talking about for last week. I was just talking to you guys about how I had spiritual warfare. I told you guys about how I became a seer. I also told you guys about how it runs in my family. We all have this prophetic calling, this prophetic anointing, and how it's very something anybody could become. It's just, you have to, when you're a seer, you just have to have the capacity and the want to want to become a seer, right? You have to be in consecration a lot, you have to pray a lot, and that's basically what it takes to be a seer. You have to worship, and you just have to be in the word a lot, right? But basically, from the word, when you see a seer like the prophet Samuel, he was under Eli, right? So he grew up under Eli, which was a prophet. So that's how he became a seer, right? As I told you guys before, I was raised in the, my dad was a pastor. He is still a pastor. I was raised in the church the whole time. He used to be in the missionary. I'm always constantly under a lot of pastors, right? Because I'm a preacher's daughter. I have a lot of pastors that teach me and stuff like that. I have this other pastor, Pastor Gabriel. I have another Pastor Joel. I have a bunch, right? That I constantly go under, and they teach, and I preach, and I teach the word and stuff like that, right? So one thing I have to say is, how are you guys doing? How was your week? What did you guys do? How was it for you? What did you guys do? You know, how was it for you, right? I hope it was good. Mine was all right. I was pretty much back in the word. What else? I was in the word. I was doing more like prayer and stuff like that, trying to get deep in that word. Still fixing my stuff, still spring cleaning. It's basically same old, doing the same old things, right? Spiritual warfare wasn't so horrible. I mean, it wasn't bad at all, not really. I mean, I'm just still continuously in the word, and it was pretty okay this week, right? The developing thing for today is, what are you eating, right? The word for today is, what are you eating? What's your diet? And I mean this in every single way. Like, what's your diet? What are you eating? What kind of diet do you have, right? Who's around you a lot of the times, right? Do you listen to your intuition? What's your relationships like? How do you feel? Okay, what's the things that keep coming in your eye, your ear gate, and what's the stuff that keep coming out of your mouth, right? So it's basically like, what are you consuming, basically? What are you consuming? What's the things that you're eating, right? If you ever heard that thing that says you are the company that you keep, I would say you're everything that you consume also, right? You're the Instagram reels that you put in. You're the YouTube channels that you put in, the people that, because believe it or not, you're getting stuff from them. They're inputting things into you, right? So I'd say sometimes I see people, they like to look at things, they like to look at things that like things that they're more realistic, because they're trying to be realistic. They look at things that are very negative based and stuff, just to be a realist. Like, for example, I am not a realist, right? I'm an optimist, right? I don't believe in real, like, being too real for well, in many ways I am an optimist, right? Let me tell you something else. So one thing I've always heard is that you are what you're gonna, everything that you are from now is the result of what you did 6 months ago, right? Everything you are now is what you did 5 days ago, a year ago. So you constantly the results that you did months ago, weeks ago, days ago, right? Because you're constantly doing things in the present. Even us that are stuck in the past, sometimes you're doing stuff in the present, even repeating past stuff. You're repeating past things that happened, past things, your past programs. You're still repeating in the present, but you're just going in the past tense in the present. And one thing I have to tell you guys, if you want a better future, don't stick to the past so much, but stick to working on the present, right? Stick to working on the present, right? Because what you're doing now, 6 months from now, it's gonna bear fruit for you, right? The thoughts that you keep entertaining now, 6 months from now, it's gonna bear fruit for you. It's gonna bear fruit for you, right? What's your vision like, right? What do you believe is true for you? What do you believe is something that is something that it comes easily towards you? Or do you believe that there's something that comes easily for you, right? Some things I have to say is that there's such a thing as boundaries and walls, right? So boundaries and walls is something, it's very good for your well-being. When you have like boundaries is for like people that they have a little bit of certain problems, but it's like it's not too damaging that you can't be around them, right? They have some things, some things like some things that it's a little hard to work through, but you could actually have them in your life, right? Now, walls are for people, they're toxic, they're extremely toxic, and you just can't have them in your life. You can't have those type of people in your life because they're just not good for you. They're gonna cause you to go down the wrong road, because either they just don't have the same vision that you have, right? Some people believe certain things are possible for them, and some don't believe that thing is possible for them, right? Some people have it in certain areas and not in certain areas. Some people call it, this is what you call limiting beliefs, right? But we all have it in one area and not the other, right? You could have it in, you believe you could break 100,000K ceiling, and some people don't believe they could do that, right? So one thing I have to say is, what do you believe is true for you? What do you believe is something that comes easily to you? Do you believe there's anything that comes easily towards you, right? Are you someone that you don't believe good things can happen to you? Or are you someone that thinks good things come all the time, and that you're able to get good things on a consistent basis, right? You're the opposite of Murphy's Law. One thing I have to say is, the other day I told you guys about my spiritual warfare on Instagram, right? I told you about my spiritual warfare on Instagram and stuff like that, right? By the way, I believe this will go to Instagram. This is made for Instagram, actually. I told you guys about my spiritual warfare, but then the other day, I just began to, something happened where I was just thinking about how grateful I am, like how lucky I am I have all the things that I have, right? Like sometimes you think about all the things you're struggling with, and then just a few days ago I was just thinking about how lucky I have it, right? For instance, I have a bunch of things I'm very grateful for. It's just that sometimes when you're going through that type of thing through spiritual warfare, you can't really see it because it's just you're blinded. But then just a few days ago, I just started thinking how lucky and how good I had it, right? that's it for what are you eating, what are you consuming, what's coming in and out of your eyes. The anniversary of the earthquake just passed, the Haitian earthquake. And the Haitian earthquake happened January 12, 2010. And what I have to tell you is, I want to tell you what happened to me on January 12, 2010, and how everything was with the earthquake, right? What happened to me and where I was. I think I told you guys this story in my January 12, 2010 video, but it's a very old video. I don't think a lot of people saw it because it's much older. It doesn't get pushed up there, so I'm gonna tell you the story again. So January 12, 2010, right, was like a day like any other day. I was fixing to make a bowl of cornflakes, and when I was fixing to make a bowl of cornflakes, like my middle aunt called. My middle aunt on my mom's side, she called, and she said something. She's like, oh, a bunch of the relatives said that it seems like the world is ending, which means for Haitian people there's an earthquake. That's what it means. And everything is shaking. They don't know what's going on. Tune into CNN, check for CNN to see what's going on. So that aunt, my middle aunt, she is like a radio. She's like Radio Citadel. Like, she's like radio, right? She always knows everything before. I don't know, it's because if she gets like news pre-hand, it's like she always knows, right? She always has a insight and info on everything, right? She has a 411 on everything. So she said, turn it to CNN. So I had my bowl of cornflakes, and this time my mom was at work. So she said, when your mom gets from work, tell her what happened so she could watch it also, right? Because we didn't know what was going on or anything like that. So anyway, all I can remember is back then I was still at Hunter College, and my mom was still working, and so I sat down with a bowl of cornflakes, and I was watching Steve Wilkos, right? Because it was 2010. It was 2010. Yeah, it was 2010. So I was just sitting down. It was just a normal afternoon. I believe it was a Tuesday. I believe, and I just sat down, changed it to CNN, and all I can remember is that Anderson Cooper had taken that one of those really those really red eyes, or those fast planes straight into Haiti, right? So he got there very fast. That's all I know. They said it was then he was already there within a few things. He just took the jet and he went lightning speed into Haiti. And I remember it was one of the scenes where the kid, right when the earthquake happened, the brick fell on the young kid's head. He was bleeding, and he saved him. He put something on him, and he got him to safety. I remember he was getting a lot of accolades for that. So then, all I can remember is that while the earthquake is going on, I just didn't take anything seriously. I thought it was just, I was just like, okay, we always have this stuff. What are the chances that this is gonna be? Because I knew it was serious, because it's an earthquake. Yeah, duh, it's an earthquake, right? So then I knew it was serious, but it was like, we always have stuff like this happen every single year. So it was going on, and all I can remember is that I'm like, oh, we're gonna get through this, and Anderson's just, people just yelling, running back and forth. This is chaotic and stuff like that. It was just chaotic. And then Anderson, all I can remember is I just didn't really, I didn't think it was gonna be as big as it was. So then they say another 7.2 something like that seismic quake happened, and then again they said another seismic quake, and they just kept saying, because it just kept getting aftershock. So the one thing when I started to take it, but I still thought it was not gonna be on the level that it was, right? So so the President Preble, he was the president at the time, he was being interviewed, and the National Palace was right next to him, the White House, right? He was just talking, and then the White House was there, and then something, a 7.2 magnitude shock wave hit, and all I know is that the palace just went and it disintegrated like sand right in front of the camera. So when I saw that, I was like, what? I was like, damn. Like, I did not, I knew it was serious, right? Of course it's serious, right? But I did not know it was like on that level. So all that time I'm eating my burger, I'm like, oh, we're gonna get through this. When I saw that, I was like, man, damn, this is serious, right? And all I could remember is that during that time when I was in school, all my teachers, kids, oh, are you okay? Is your family okay? They were so like, my teachers like, oh, you're from Haiti and stuff like that. My professors, oh, how's your family? Luckily, I only had one person pass away, luckily, and all I can remember is I couldn't understand how much airplay it got. It just got a lot of airplay, right? It was all over the news. Like, to this day, I still don't understand how it got that much airplay, right? Because I remember after that, there was, what's the one in Louisiana, hurricane? What was it? It was another one. It was a huge thing. Something in Louisiana. I forgot. It was a huge national disaster. And there was a bunch of tsunamis afterwards. And it did not get that much coverage, right? So I believe it got like months and months worth of coverage, right? Months and months worth of coverage and stuff like that. I remember there was one point they were giving us phone cards and stuff like that. The phone cards, you didn't need a phone card. You could just go and just call, and you could like talk right through you could just talk right through the telephone. You didn't need a phone card because back then WhatsApp wasn't really popular back then. So you just could talk straight through. And I remember my mom and stuff, they would take full advantage, like speak for hours with people in Haiti. And it was just a very exciting but also weary time at the same time, right? So that was what I was doing January 12th, 2010. And like, I remember it like it was yesterday. It's one of those things you can't really forget like that, right? Like, I just, that's stuck in my mind. So another thing I want to talk to you guys is about intuition and dreams. Intuition and dreams, right? Because before, I was just talking to you guys about what you put around you, what's consistently around you, what you do on a consistent basis, how that affects you, right? So another thing, so that has to do more with your five senses, right? So people say there's something called sixth sense, or your intuition. Some people call it your subconscious. Some people say it's God. Some people say it's a higher power. One thing I have to say is your intuition, some people could say it's the gut feeling. One thing I have to say is your intuition almost is, I would say, is almost never wrong, right? Let me scratch that. It's almost, I would say it's right. Your gut is right most of the time. I would say a majority of the time, right? Have you ever had something happen to you where something wasn't that peculiar, but your mind told you, pay attention to this, pay attention to it, something you need to keep your focus on? Okay, so it's 8:10. Hold on. So Has something ever happened to you where your mind is telling you, pay attention? It's telling you to pay attention to something because it's important? Well, the thing I have to tell you is that the way your intuition, or you could say it's your subconscious that's working, the way it works is, I told you guys I believe this was last week, that sometimes you believe on your rational mind that you understand a lot of things, right? Because if I was talking to you guys about your ear, your eye, your senses, that's all your sensory stuff, and you're counting on your 5 senses, right? But your subconscious mind, or your intuition, or God, because you're more than just a human, your spirit also, right? Your spirit, right? So you operate, so you're more than just flesh, and you're just more than flesh, right? So one thing I have to say is that the way your subconscious mind works, it picks up on a lot of information you may not be picking up on, right? Sometimes something will tell you, be careful for something, or I'll tell you, take this opportunity, strike this opportunity, it's gonna do good for you, and you don't know why, because it doesn't look like it's a good opportunity. But trust me, the Holy Spirit knows more than you do, right? It knows this, your subconscious, the way it works, it's picking up on a lot of information a lot of the time, right? So sometimes something will tell you, pay attention to that, right? And like, take note of that, pay attention to that, and you will pay attention to that, and later on you see, oh, okay, that's why that happened. Later on you see that's why. But something will tell you, pay attention to something, right? Focus on that. Don't you see that person, pay attention to them. They have something you need, right? So one thing I have to say is, like, a lot of times the way people work is like, they don't believe, they think that they're just the 5 senses, they're just what they see. You're more than just this flesh, right? You have a spirit, and there's a Holy Spirit that's working in you that knows tons more than you could ever know about your situation or about what's going on around you, right? Okay, so now I'm gonna focus on over to your dreams, right? Your dreams. I'm gonna focus on dreams and why you should pay attention to your dreams, why you should take note to remember your dreams, right? So one thing I have to say is, I'm a person, whenever I dream, for the most part, I dream more pleasant dreams, right? For the most part, I have pleasant dreams, but the dreams don't necessarily have anything they stick out too much, right? Unless it was after I did my Daniel fast, then the dreams started to make more, they begin to be more like, okay, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, this person's doing this, be careful because of this. It became more like warning me, trying to get me to understand like what was going on in my life, right? But for the most part, most of my dreams, they have stuff where it's like it's more pleasant than not, right? So one thing you have to know about dreams is, some dreams could come from God, some dreams could come from somebody that is from manipulation, that spiritual manipulation of dreams. I've heard of that, and now I know that's true. And I believe there's even the enemy could even influence your dreams sometimes, right? There's definitely spiritual manipulation of dreams, right? But before, I did not know that that was the case, right? Let me start this over again. So there's definitely something called spiritual manipulation of dreams, right? Some things I have to say is, your dreams, you have the power. Some dreams you have the power to rebuke. Some dreams you have the power to come in agreement with, right? So example, one thing you have to pay attention to in dreams is how do you feel, right? Do you feel off? Do you feel worry? And something is, be careful what you readily accept in dreams, right? Sometimes the dreams could look benevolent, but you have to ask God, okay, what does this dream mean first of all, right? Is this a good thing, right? Because I have heard of something called spiritual manipulation through witchcraft, of people manipulating dreams, and what they're trying to do is get you to come into agreement with certain dreams, especially dreams that are not to your benefit, right? So certain things I have to say to you, certain dreams you might think is good, but it might not be good. For example, if you have a loved one that passed away and you're like, oh, that's grandma or that's mom, or somebody, a dad passed away, or like a cousin passed away, and you keep seeing that person, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say to you, once a person passes away, you don't want that person, according to the Christian theology, based on what I see now, what I've been researching now, you don't want that person visiting you, because that isn't a good sign, right? For first of all, that isn't your grandmother, that is not your lost loved one, that is something called the familiar spirit, from like from reading a lot, right? From reading and looking through spiritual YouTubes, I found out that is not a good thing when you see a person that passed away. Even though they look loving, they're very loving in the dream, you don't want to be touching or hugging or coming into agreement with anyone that passed away, because that's a familiar spirit and it's trying to get you to accept, either for you to pass on with the person or to accept certain generational curses that the person had, right? So if you had a mom and she could never, she just had a bunch of things where she was an alcoholic or so. Sometimes if she passes on, what you see, you keep seeing dreams of your mother, and she's trying to get you to accept her baggage, right? I see that happens. A lot of people, I've heard of that happening before. Before I did not know that, right? One thing I knew is that when somebody passes on, in Christian theology, I always knew that you're not supposed to keep entertaining their pictures too much, because you just want the person to rest in peace, right? I have also heard, because you remember in my video, in my Halloween Spook Fest video, I told you about me going to a family, and the mom had a daughter who she loved very much. And because she loved her very much, she had something where she had the picture, it was like a shrine. And during my visit there, I just kept seeing a bunch of supernatural activity that maybe they didn't see because they had that shrine up for a long time. Because she just kept talking about that daughter, and she kept keeping her spirit alive by talking. That's one other thing we don't do in Christianity. We don't keep constantly talking about the dead, right? Because we believe that too much talking, too much reviving of what their spirit was, pictures of them in the house, we don't want, especially pictures that was the picture in their funeral. Like, you don't want pictures that that remind you too much of the dead, always in your face, hung up in a room, shrined up. You just don't want that, because that's just, you're not letting the soul rest. And a lot of witchcraft could be used with that, right? Unfortunately, yeah, that could be used in manipulation of certain things like that, right? Unfortunately, right? So dreams. So again, so one thing I have to say is, certain dreams, they come as if they're pleasant, but you have to be careful and always ask God for the interpretation of that dream, right? So it might look pleasant, but there's something about it, especially if you feel like you don't know anything, before you accept a dream or you say, oh, that's a good dream, ask the Lord, okay, what did you mean by that, right? When I saw this color or this thing, what does it mean? Okay, what does it mean? As a seer, I have dreams. I can have dreams sometimes, but I have more impressions, right? Impressions are more like little picture. You have seconds worth of a quick thing, a quick image God will show you. And it doesn't last that long, but it's like a dream more, but it's more stuff that's to come, or representation of things that's to come, right? So that's one thing you want to do. You want to know what you can rebuke and what you're supposed to accept, right? So if there's a dream and it's speaking towards you, you could accept it. But one thing I have to tell you is, just make sure you ask God for interpretation, right? Because remember, whichever dreams, he's able to decipher which one is good and which one is not good, right? Okay, so one thing I have to tell you is, so I told you guys 6 months from now, you're gonna be able to achieve your goals, right? With present momentum, present, you're doing things in the present, you're gonna be able to achieve it 6 months from now. 6 months from now, what you're doing then, we'll be able to do the next 6 months from then, right? So one thing I have to say is, how would you then turn your dreams into a reality, right? What would you do? How would you turn your dreams into reality? Yeah, what would you do? How would you be able to turn a huge dream, like for instance, example, modeling, having 1 million subscribers for your YouTube, if that's something that you want, right? How would you do something like be an actress, if that's something that you want, right? Let's just use those examples. How would you be able to lose 100 pounds, right? One thing I have to say, excuse me, one thing I have to say is that we don't really want, maybe, if you say you want to lose 100 pounds, I bet if you lost 80 pounds, you'd be just as happy, right? I bet if you lost 50 pounds, you'd be just as happy. And I'm willing to bet if you lost 25 pounds, you would be just as happy, right? What I usually see with goals like New Year's resolutions is that you're trying to get leeway to be better than you were before, which is the main goal. But how are you going to do that? What's your plan so that you could fulfill the year of Esther, right? That you were born for such a time as this, right? How are you going to fulfill that goal, right? So one thing I have to say for you to fulfill that goal is, so you have this plan. You have this plan of you want to lose 100 pounds. Let's go with that, right? Or let's go with the modeling thing. Actually, let's go with the weight loss because that's going to be more easier for me to explain to you. So you want to lose the 100 pounds. What can you do right now that's going to cause you to lose 100 pounds right now in the house with all the junk food in your house, everything just as is? What can you do, right? One thing you can do, I could say, because one thing I have to say is easy does it, right? Easy does it. We don't want anything fast in this life, right? We don't want anything like a bingo lot in this life, right? Why is that? Because it's in the adjustment. You're going to learn to adjust yourself. You're going to reintegrate. You're going to learn how to do certain things the right way. So let me tell you. So you're 100 pounds heavier now. And you're going to the fridge. What can you do today? This instant that you could do that could help you lose your 100 pounds, right? What's one small thing that you could do? And we're operating on the thing of easy does it, right? We don't want it too fast. We don't want it quick, because nothing quick is good for us, right? Nothing that comes too quick is ever good because it doesn't allow for adjustment. So one thing I have to say is, one thing you could do is maybe you could go in your refrigerator, go into the tap and get a glass of water. That's one thing you could do. What else? Anytime you're hungry, you drink a cup of water, 2 cups of water first. Anytime you're hungry, maybe you could reach for some vegetables that you have right now. You could eat more balanced. Okay, the thing is not to do anything fast, right? So when people are doing these diets where they're like eating like a bunch of vegetables, by the 3rd week they can't it's not sustainable, right? If you have to lose 50 pounds within 2 weeks, you're gonna have to lose 50 pounds every 2 weeks from then on, because your body has to maintain the momentum of that, right? But how about if you lost 2 pounds per week, or 1 pound per week, or 3 or 5, right? And you consistently did little things every single day that would help you, right? One thing I would suggest with losing weight is focus more on how you feel, right? Focus more on how your clothes fit. Focus more on the energy you have, right? Because when you're focusing on things like the pounds with mass, which is not really reliable, you could weigh heavier, but your contouring looks much better. You could look heavier, but that's just mass. You look much more buffer. You look more toned. You look better overall. You feel better. You sleep better. You're eating better. Your habits are better. You wake up more refreshed. Your joints don't hurt anymore. Then you could put that more as a way for the weight loss. One thing I have to say is that one thing I don't like about certain diets is like it's like a one size fits all, right? It's like everyone is like no pain no gain. You eat salads, you eat this, go raw all the time, you do this all the time, and it's like it's not realistic. And some people just don't have that willpower, right? They don't have that willpower. And some people, they'll fail miserably because they just don't have that momentum yet, right? Some people, they had to build that momentum to get to that point where they're that fiery, right? Somebody that just doesn't have that discipline, they just go like cold turkey doing like that. They're not going to succeed, right? So one thing I have to say to you is, what way in the easy does it mode, can you begin to this easy does it contribute to this diet, right? Because that's one thing I know a lot of people are into, that diet, right? Because they all want to lose weight for the new year, but by the fourth week of January, everybody's quit, right? So what's one way you don't have to quit? As I said before, take a glass of water, right? Take just one glass of water every other 4 hours, every 3 hours, for something very simple. One more glass of water every day, 2 more glasses of water every day, two push-ups only. You start off, right? And what you begin to see is, as you're doing this, you begin to gain momentum, right? You're like, oh, 1 glass, I could do that. You start getting a little more ideas, right? So remember, sometimes you're not motivated to lose weight. Maybe it's because the task is just too daunting, right? So one thing I have to say is that you don't want anything too quick, right? Why don't you want anything too quick? You don't want anything too quick because anything too quick doesn't give you formation. And let me use this in like weight loss again, right? I remember there was the show Extreme Makeover, and in Extreme Makeover, I remember the people, they would just want them to lose a lot of weight extra quick, and it was like they would like do a bunch of, they went from 0 to 360 right when they started on the show. Now one thing I always remarked is that there were a few of the shows where after the person lost all that weight, first of all, a lot of them would have that loose skin, because that's what happens, unfortunately, when you lose so much weight so quickly. What I remember is that some of them would die. Like, some of them would just die, and I think that's one of the clauses in the contract where they can't sue, because that's part of it, right? But imagine you're trying to get better, but you go so quickly that you die. Whereas if you had just stayed the way you were, you wouldn't have died. So one thing I have to say is, a lot of the reason I believe that they passed away is because they went too quick too soon, right? So they went too quick too soon. So it's like when you're doing things, you have to do it slowly, right? You have to do it easy does it, and let your body adjust, right? So one thing I have to say is, with this principle of you don't want anything too quick, this goes for money, this goes for relationships, this goes for everything, right? You don't want anything that comes too quickly, right? Anything that is just, it's just here, it's fast. Because what's happening is, when something is fast, like money, you're not learning the principles of losing it and getting it. You're not learning how to value it, right? That's how come when you win the lottery, it's never a good thing, right? Unless you have a good head on your shoulders and you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to do this with the money. So one thing I have to tell you is, that's good to do. One thing I have to tell you is that everything in life, and this is one thing I had to tell myself while I was going through my spiritual warfare, because after that spiritual warfare broke, I began to see how lucky I was. I began to get more grateful about what I had. One thing I also saw is I began to get content with what I had too, right? One thing I have to tell you guys is, are you content in the state that you're in right now? Are you content right now, here and now, right? Are you content? I have to say is that when you're on social media, which is one of my pet peeves about social media, is that, but it's a pet peeve I've learned to see right through, is that everyone seems like they have it all together, but it's come to a point I'm like, I see right through this. It's not that you have it all together, it's just that it's a nice commercial reel, right? Some people, it's a little bit more camouflage than others, but it's a commercial reel. They do it very well. It's a commercial reel, right? One thing I have to say is, once that spiritual warfare broke, I began to get more grateful. I just remember I was listening to some K-Love. And I just began to think about all the good things that I had in my life, right? All the breaks I had, how lucky I am to be alive. It's just some points when you're going through spiritual warfare, you don't see all the good things. You just think, oh, this sucks, right? But for me, once it broke, it was like I began to see how lucky I was, and I began to get more content with my life, right? One thing I have to say is, are you content with your life, right? Are you okay with your life right now, right? And all I have to tell you is that being content doesn't mean things are perfect. It just means, are you willing to see how good you have it, right? And I was so unhappy the past, in many parts of the past 4 months, because it was like I just kept going in and out of the cycle, in and out of the cycle, and I was very unhappy about that, right? I was extremely unhappy about it naturally, and I just felt like how unfair this is that this kept going on and over again, and I just got into a point where I felt victimized a lot, right? But one thing I have to tell you is that after that broke through, I began to see in what ways I'm so lucky. One thing is, I'm here, right? I'm here. I get to be here. I get to start all over again, right? Right? Because now I'm out of it. I'm fine now. I get to feel, I get every day an opportunity to make my dreams come true, right? More like most of us. I have so much opportunity in front of me. Why waste it thinking about stuff that happened in the past, right? So I'm Y star with 3 R's. This is Christani Jen. And let's say the Lord's Prayer together, right? So the Lord's Prayer goes like this. Dear Lord Jesus, I believe you died and rose again on the 3rd day. And I believe that today, when I die, I will go with you in paradise, right? So that's basically my video for today. My name is Christani Jen. Have a lovely day, you guys. Thanks. See ya.